Welcome to the SARE Ladies podcast, the sister brand of Subtle Asian Real Estate, where our mission is to get more people that look like us participating in the real estate industry. We invite experts to not just talk about real estate, but also about our unique identity as Asian women and the cultural values that shape who we are as investors. I'm Anita Wong.
And I'm Tiffany Lee. We're both real estate agents and investors based in the Bay Area and New York City. Whether you're a seasoned real estate pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone here. So pour yourself a glass of wine or boba tea and join us as we celebrate the achievements and unleash the untapped potential of AAPI women in the real estate industry.
Welcome to the SARE Ladies podcast.
Now let's get on with the show.
To optimize your wealth health is I was also Googling like what different types of hormones were. I was like, what's progesterone? And apparently that's the pregnancy hormone. So we do already have the progesterone hormones. But yeah, alright, so that was my segue. Did you want to say? So that was me trying to bridge a gap very awkwardly.
I like it.
Yeah, it's really hard to transition from erectile dysfunction.
Don't worry, we don't have you have a lot of testosterone on our next panel.
Well, we're super excited to be bringing you these three remarkable panelists who are industry experts in themselves, but we're here to kind of talk about the cultural nuances in their individual industries, and this is actually a really important time for us, especially in the SARE Ladies investment realm, because the year end is where we do all the good stuff that helps us save and a tax plan and estate plan really for the year. So we're gonna welcome our three panelists. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So first up, we have in our first seat, who will be sitting right next to me, is Meylin Maldonado from the Meylin Group at Compass. Meylin Maldonado is the CEO of the Meylin Group at Compass. She has an extensive background in finance and fashion and has been working in residential and commercial real estate for close to 10 years. Her real estate experience covers a wide range of clients in high-end luxury residential, retail leasing, and nonprofit organizations. So she will be the estrogen mix.
I like it. Sort of. I've got lots of testosterone.
Yeah, she has all of it. She's healthy. Very aggressive mix. All right, so next up we have James Hu, who's an attorney at SDS and Associates, PLLC. James Hu is a New York licensed partner at a boutique law firm specializing in working with first-generation family-owned businesses generating $5 to $50 million in annual revenue. His mission is to be the type of attorney our immigrant parents should have had, and not the pay my retainer and then we'll see what happens types, which our parents only used out of desperation. So, and always with terrible results, right? So his ability to practice both personal and corporate commercial law has helped him serve a dynamic unique to family businesses, where there really aren't personal and company issues, but everything is more intertwined. Kind of like hormone therapy. Right? Putting it all together. Yeah. And this also includes real estate assets. All right, and last up we have, last but not least, we have Rick Hu, who is the CEO of Midas Wealth. Rick Hu is the founder CEO of Midas Wealth, a motivational and global speaker and high performance coach. Well, does that not sound like testosterone? High performance, look at that. Forbes Top 100 Financial Security Professional. He is a Forbes Top 100 Financial Security Professional, award-winning wealth management advisor, and $1 Million Roundtable Lifetime member and MDRT Top of the Table member. There's a lot of acronyms, also like the hormones. I have no idea what those acronyms mean, but it's all coming together. So welcome everyone. I'm so happy to have you all here. Thank you. So let's kick us all off. I'll go from left to right. Can you tell us about your practice? What have you experienced in regards to Asian communities and what they seem to value most from a legal, financial, and real estate planning perspective? So I guess if you want to go first, what's the real estate perspective? What's been your experience with Asian clients?
Okay, so I made notes because I wanted to make sure I covered everything. So I think, to give you a little context, sort of where I work and why I sort of work with these communities and things like that. So I am born and raised in New York City, grew up in the West Village and the Upper West Side, and now have resided in Queens for about almost 14 years, actually. What am I talking about? 11 years in Jackson Heights, 5 years in Astoria before that, where I don't know if most of you know is a big Asian community. Both in Manhattan, downtown, I think, with Chinatown and everything, and then I think Queens had, and Sunset Park and these types of places really hold a lot of our communities. So I do work a lot within that. I am sort of background Chinese Colombian, and so it's a little different, which is Queens, it's perfect. I don't speak Mandarin or Chinese, but it's certainly, I get a lot of calls from Mandarin and Chinese because of my name, Meylin. But, so what ended up happening, I think, over time, I think all of these communities have ended up melding. I think there's a lot of similarities between like Asian and Hispanic communities, a lot of first generations, a lot of immigrants with first generation children being raised here, a lot of wealth being built from the real estate in New York, actually, a lot of portfolios, a lot of the family run businesses essentially. So that's sort of where I talk about, that's sort of our clientele, is what I talk about is it tends to be families that have commercial real estate, residential real estate in their portfolios. It's a mix, their own homes, primary residences, and then how do you handle all of them? A lot of them are family run businesses, essentially. They property manage their own businesses, they fund them, they are their own contractors in many cases, and et cetera, et cetera. So I would say, actually, much to your even bio, speaking of, I think a lot of the lawyers, let's say, they hire aren't necessarily real estate lawyers, let's say, when I talk about that. I deal with a lot of lawyers that are not in the real estate business, but they're trusted. They have been with the community for a long time. They know everybody. So I think the main thing is community. I think that's kind of it takes a village type of thing. So I think that's the way I would describe it. So that's my experience. It takes everybody. It's usually a lot of family members involved. We're usually speaking to parents and their children and their grandparents and so forth and so forth. And aunts and uncles are involved sometimes, or lots of business partners. I think the thing I see the most, which is funny and it seems maybe cliche, but it's like always savings and value, right? We want things really simple and straightforward. I call it like, it's just very straightforward. What is the property? What is the rate? And what is my return? That's it. Don't give me the extra spiel. Don't give me all the extra stuff. I want to know how this works for me. So I think that's my experience, has been just being more custom based, being more into understanding its layers and layers, I think is sort of the way to approach it. And I think another thing we do a lot is we have to handhold a lot. It's a lot more, let's say, going over our fee agreements. Let's say in those communities, I go over them line by line. We want to know what we're paying, why we're paying it, where it's going, who's getting shown, and to the T's. And it's like, I love it because it's thorough. I think you're talking about communities, again, because everyone is coming together. I think what we're looking at is actually a lot of experience, to be honest, which is why they don't want all the runaround. We're talking about people who are experts at their trades, whether it be finance or building or anything like, which we see a lot of, or capital, we see a lot of as well, capital markets. I would say that's sort of the experience. They have a lot of experience. So again, it's about what are you bringing value? What are we paying for? And oddly, I would say just speaking to the actual needs. Mm-hmm. That would be the other thing. That would be the experience. Not going off of just what's happening in the market, but just what's happening for their needs. This is usually really investment properties, primary residences, and commercial mixed use properties, essentially. Yeah.
James, have you seen this mirrored in your lane as well,
Yeah.
in the legal lane? Yeah.
Right. So my firm is actually, there's two of us. I live in Houston. We're both New York licensed attorneys. I live in Houston. My partner lives in Amsterdam. Originally, we started out as kind of outside general counsel for corporate work for European companies looking to open U.S. operations or U.S. companies looking to work in Europe. So we were kind of well placed for that. My partner is dual citizen EU, US. I'm dual citizen Taiwan and US. And in working with his European clients, I mean, a lot of that first generation, different culture, different kind of legal regime, working the US, a lot of that was very applicable to kind of how I grew up and the people that I knew. But the difference was Europeans generally have an idea of how to use the attorney, and they just use us a lot more effectively than Asians generally tend to. Kind of the way to kind of give like a very distinct and timely example is, so I live in Houston, this is New York. People feel differently about our former president, but he's been in the news the last couple of weeks because he's got this trial in New York. A lot of the things that are coming out through the trial and have kind of come out with like New York Times leaks in 2018, a lot of those things are pretty standard practices, and you don't have to be a family of billionaires to kind of use some of those methods. And there's money in Asia that's coming to the US, and they just really don't understand how. And I talked with Anita earlier, Asians have their own kind of tricks that they pass on to each other, but they generally don't work here, and they end up like digging a deeper hole. So that's kind of where like our firm, I've kind of realized kind of what we were already doing, but only focusing on the Atlantic side has kind of more and more become relevant to the Pacific side as well.
Things get lost in translation, right?
Yes.
Literally and figuratively.
Literally,
Yeah, we do a lot of like, so I think that's what people miss is a lot of line by line. Because I think like growing up here, like if our parents never wanted to admit that they didn't know something, it was right. Somebody would tell them something and it was like, you don't want to embarrass yourself. So, oh, of course, yeah, that's how it's done. So we spend a lot of time going line by line and saying, look, when somebody tells you this is how it's done, you don't always have to just trust them on that. A lot of times it's not. And you kind of have to know like when to push back so that you don't just keep getting taken advantage of, basically.
What about you, Ray? Where are you seeing that on the wealth planning side?
So a little bit about my background. So I graduated with a finance degree. Growing up, my parents wanted me 3 occupations: a doctor, lawyer, engineer. I failed them. I realized my passion was math, and I realized I really love finance. So when I decided to forgo investment banking and become a wealth management advisor, I realized there are very few Asians in wealth management. And there's a reason for that. Because Asians do not like to talk about money. It's not a common practice. I believe that there are 3 very obvious generations, at least in America today. There are people that are 20s and younger. There are people like I call our sandwich generation, which are 30s to 50s. And then there are people that are 60s and older. Now, every one of those generations have a different psychological relationship with money. And coming from a family of immigrants, I was born in the 80s, my parents always taught me to work hard and just do well in school. They had no good relationship with money. So what I found is Asians either have abundant mentality, which is very few, or they have scarcity mentality. They're afraid of money, to be frank. All they do is hoard it, save it, work hard and save it. But the problem is, as the government, the country is injecting more capital into our system, unless they take money away, the dollars are diluting and depreciating. So I believe, unfortunately in America, the wealth gap is going to get greater and greater, and Asians, the people that are hoarding cash because of lack of literacy, will suffer the most. So it's been my career commitment to serve people, help people understand the last 17 years of being a wealth management advisor, how the best of the best are doing things. So some things I would say is taking that frugal mentality, scarcity, and transitioning it to abundance. Taking that Eastern way, which many of our families may have come from different countries, and helping them understand that Western world practices may be applicable. So my parents growing up, they said there's only 2 forms of wealth: cash and real estate. Cash and real estate, that's a fact. So when I started talking to them about like the stock market, no, that's gambling. Stock market can go down. Well, fundamentally, in a nice, respectful way, so can real estate, right? Fundamentally, your dollars that you're hiding under your mattress, possibly, hopefully not, also depreciate, right? So I find that especially the last few years with inflation being all-time high over 9%, the communities that are complaining the most are Asians. They're like, my dollars are not going far. I'm a W-2 income earner and I'm not making enough money and groceries are so expensive. But they lack the understanding that money is just a tool. It's either used for an exchange of service, like a haircut, or used to exchange for goods. You're not supposed to hoard money, right? Otherwise, we won't take control of our money, money take control of us. So where I see the generations, and hopefully, like my parents' generation, the 60s and later, they sacrificed so much to be, for like us, some of us in the sandwich generation, to learn more, know more, and do more, and be more. And it's our responsibility. I have 3 kids. I'm teaching them the Western ways. But I'm not forgetting the Eastern ways of hard work, dedication, right, respect. But I have to take some of my Eastern roots that were taught to me and apply and learn the Western roots. Not work hard, but we can work hard and work smart. We should have passive income. We should diversify our ability to generate wealth, right? It's not just 9 to 5 W-2 income. Heck, as Warren Buffett says, if you don't make money while you sleep, you'll work till the day you die, right? All of us should understand what are other streams of income. So like I personally have at least 5 streams of income. I own a wealth management company. I'm a global speaker. I'm an international coach for advisors. I own real estate that I put into a trust. And I have a SLAT, spousal lifetime access trust, which I invest in private companies, put into there, where it's gifted to my wife. So whether I'm working 9 to 5 or not, that doesn't matter. But I look at money as simply as a tool. I don't really have an obsession with it, although I'm a wealth management advisor. I talk about how we can take money and live our best life. So that's how I see Asian community, money, and wealth.
Got it. That's a great answer. Thank you, guys. So what are some common challenges that you see the community face, and I guess you guys kind of all answered that already in your own way of applying a Western like protocol to an Eastern sensibility, right? So applying that. So I guess we can skip that question. In line with that, what topics can Asian American businesses and real estate entrepreneurs pay attention to in the year end to maximize their savings, protection, and real estate position? I might actually kind of want to rephrase that question, Bridget, just because of the way the discussion is organically forming. Sorry, guys. Tiffany's changing up script. He was like, this wasn't on
These are just talking points. I remember.
But a common thread that all 3 of you had mentioned that also ties back to our first discussion is that there is this time horizon, and everyone's time on earth is finite. Health and wealth are finite. The only things certain in life are death and taxes, right? So with health, like everyone's gonna die, so what are you gonna do to optimize your health? You have to eat, sleep right, do all these things correctly to make sure you're optimizing the time you're here. Same thing with wealth. So it's and that strategy is different with each age that you're at, right? If you're planning for retirement, your portfolio is gonna look much different than someone just starting out, right? It's gonna be more conservative versus risky. And you can see the same thing in the hormone distribution at different stages of your life. And I bridged together. And he was like, you just wanted to flex.
It's her secret talent.
That's pretty good, though. That was pretty good. All right. So going back from that, in your mind, the way you interact with your clients, how can they maximize at each stage of their life from real estate, legal, and wealth perspective? So I guess we'll say, what would someone in their 20s, 30s, how would that look different than someone in their 50s, 60s going to retirement? I think we can go backwards. Let's go backwards because that's how we'll trickle. Yeah.
So I always believe this: the enemy of learning is knowing. If you think you know it all, then you'll never learn. So what I truly believe in the 20s, how we should approach financials is literacy. It's just learn as much as you can and gain massive experience. In the 30s, then you need to start investing, diversifying. In the 40s, go all in, find what your passion is. In the 50s and 60s, start transferring and teaching the next generation. What I believe when it comes to just understanding and learning from each other, I think the problem is there's the media. Growing up in the 80s, there was lack of internet, so it's lack of information. Today's at the palm of our fingertip. It's so easy to find. But the problem is you can't decipher what's good information, what's bad information. And there's a terrible situation with herd mentality. A lot of bad advice is being spread, so it's like learning and understanding, listening to experts. So I believe when it comes to just for people with wealth, taxes, real estate, and legal, time is now. Opportunity's never been better. So I started in finance in 2007. In 2008, the Great Recession. When that happened, everyone was scared. I have colleagues that went back to school. They're like, oh my God, the market crashed, banks are getting bailed out, companies are going under. Now, if we look back at time and think about it today, I can go back, if I could go back into time in 2008, I saw massive discounts. Massive discounts. Right now, I understand inflation is high, interest rates are high, but guess what? I believe, as I hear some of the media speakers, real estate is too expensive because of a high interest rate. Heck, last week I just went to Las Vegas and I picked up a property 30% off listing because I don't have competition, right? So for any Asians that are looking to build wealth, stop listening to bad herd mentality. I believe right now with high interest rates, there's less competition. Low interest rate last year was a buyer's market, right? If I was a selling person, someone gives me an offer of $1 million, I was like, thank you for the offer. Next, 1.1, next, 1.2. It was clearly a seller's market. Right now, if you are a seller, it's the opposite. It's a buyer's market because there's not much competition. So, number one, understand opportunity, discount. Number two, as you get to the end of the year, your taxes, your tax return is a weapon. Is a weapon. I'll give you a great example. I was just speaking with our CPA, working with our team. By the end of the year, however, because I'm a business owner, whether I decide to depreciate, whether I decide to deduct, if I deduct, next year, I may not have enough leverage to borrow from the bank. So I purposely told our team, I don't want that much deductions this year. Why not? I want to beef up my tax return, so I'll go to the bank and I'll get an example of how much I can leverage. So understanding real estate, taxes, and of course, legacy planning. It doesn't matter how much you build if you don't understand where it goes and how much you keep. Too many communities are going through programs, right? My father a few years ago said, son, you're my only child. Let me transfer the deed to your name. I said, Dad, hell no. I'm your only child. I'm not letting you transfer the deed to my name. It's like, then who am I going to give it to? Well, first of all, if you transfer it to my name, I lose what is called a step up in basis. If God forbid you pass away. And he was like, then what should I do? You can't give it to me unless I sign, but what you need to do is work with an attorney, create a revocable living trust, put me as beneficiary, so that when you bought that Brooklyn home for $100,000 and now it's worth $2 million, I don't have to pay for that $1.9 million of capital gains. Where do you learn that? From school, right? It's my responsibility to learn it, to teach it. So once again, wealth, there's no better time than now. Taxes, estate planning, you should have done it yesterday. And then of course, real estate, I think the opportunity is incredible. It was like last week, there was news about WeWork. I'm telling people, commercial real estate, right? Commercial real estate, there's a lot of opportunity. So that's my opinion.
And to segue that to Rick, right? A trust is a Western legal solution that does not exist in an Eastern context. We have no, there's no such thing as trust and Confucianism. It's like, I'm going to give you all my land. And it's like Meylin said, it's ABC, 1, 2, like that's the but there's no, the nuances of these like legal instruments are so abstract. It's not present in a lot of the Eastern culture that we grew up with. So applying that, bridging that gap to a Western context, so that we can continue to build wealth and not be left behind, like you said earlier, Rick, is very crucial for wealth to last generations. Now that we've like assimilated, integrated over to the West. So. James, that you take it over from there, like the legal solution of how you navigate that. Yeah.
So to go off of what Rick said about kind of the herd mentality, so personal background on me is I currently have a junior and a sophomore in high school. So a lot of, it's the usual conversation about parents and social media and all of that. And I get it that even as young, middle-aged professionals, like social media is kind of just how things are done these days. But the backside of that is, traditionally, going back not just this year at the end of the year, but hundreds of years, just like the wealthy people had always kind of leaned on discretion. Again, to kind of go to our former president, if he hadn't run for president, none of the stuff that's happening now would have ever come out. And that's literally, I mean, we're sitting in the heart of New York, like everybody here, there's 1,000 people within a block of us that are using the exact same methods, that they're just not running for president and making the New York Times dig through their trash. So that's part of it. And then as far as kind of building out your life, I think it's hard for 20-year-olds. I mean, right, so like it's all about, what is the term, right? Like the visibility, like you want to show people that you're hustling. You can do all that, but there's ways to, like, especially New York shares so much of your personal information in public records. You might think you need to get out there for the visibility right now, but when you actually make it, that becomes something that is impossible to take away from public records. One of our clients in Europe, she's actually the heiress of a European cosmetic chemical company. And you'd have never heard of her except when you start seeing kind of her holdings and like it starts to make sense. So it's hard to say. I think the herd is saying, go out there, be visible, like, you know, use social media to your advantage. You can still do that, but just kind of be more careful about how to not do that on public records as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll add a little to that. So again, a little more context. So our team actually does hybrid. So it's very important. I actually do, we're a rare team where we do commercial and residential very strongly, actually. We are not, it's very important though, because it was something that was developed on purpose and it took a lot of time to sort of develop, because we found that they speak to each other. So just speaking on just sort of how you plan, I think real estate, we have to look at it in a different way now. So even from a young time, I think that the old way was everyone was becoming a homeowner, primary residence was the big thing, and then have an investment property. I think we saw a lot of Asian buyers doing a lot of investment. That was the big thing, having rental properties, the big condo boom between Queens and here in downtown, and Upper West Side was a big place for that. I think what I'm seeing now is, so look, I'm in real estate, and I say, I'm always like, real estate is the place to be, because I feel like we want diversified portfolios, and that we always want a piece of property that is actually appreciating. So you want something on the books and you want to get in there as quick as possible. But I think what's different now is we are seeing real estate as investment. Commercial is a part of it, but I think we have to look at it as micro markets. It has to make sense for the investor and for the person, because if it is not the right location, it is not an industry you're in, it is not an area you know, it is not a good idea. It is just not. You also have to know thyself, and yes, get out of your comfort zone, I think, and educate our communities on how to get out of the comfort zone. But I think, again, a diversified portfolio is kind of the way to go. It is a combo of commercial, it is a combo of primary residences and residential and all that good stuff. And I do believe that it is a good time to get into commercial, actually, because that is where we're seeing the biggest discounts. However, again, micro markets, there is some markets where we're still seeing over ask pricing. We're still seeing bidding wars. So again, we're talking about micro places. So I would say in some cases, we're advising people to sell. In other cases, we're advising them to start doing things like owner financing as an alternative. When people are competing with interest rates like 8 or 9%, you can offer something like 7, and you're gonna beat out other people, and you're still earning more than, let's say, investing into stock and other things right now that are not doing as well. So I would say then also, even off of going on a conservatorship and things like that, there are just other ways to estate plan, and really just, I would sit as a family. Because something else that we see a lot, and we are working with multiple clients right now who are in this situation where we have parents with generational portfolios, who are now trying to pass it on to their children who do not want to be residential managers now. They're doctors. Half of them are doctors, lawyers, and they're like, I'm not running real estate. What do I want that for? I'm over here in California and you're in New York. You know, so I think we're gonna see a lot of, let's say, trading off, understanding that maybe the kids aren't going to be taking over. I think that's been the story of a long time, but I think it is the story of the time now, actually. And it's not that the kids don't want to invest in real estate, they just have a different idea of how they want to invest in real estate now. It's not the same way. I think a lot of what I saw, let's say with our parents' generations, were that they owned the places and they ran their companies out of those places, in addition to not only was it the place they did everything, but it was an asset on the books, and now they're retired and out of the business, and now they just have these properties sitting there empty in many cases. So again, I would say for Asian communities specifically, it's family planning, even from 20s. What are you going to do? Talk to your parents about the truth. You don't want to be there. It's time to tell them so that they can plan for it. You know, it's a good thing to have a talk, and then let your parents learn from you, and we can learn from each other. I actually think it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you for tuning in to the SARE Ladies podcast hosted by Anita Wong and Tiffany Lee. Special thanks to Subtle Asian Real Estate, LLC, our parent company.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review or follow SARE Ladies on Spotify and Instagram @Subtle Real Estate. You can also click on our show notes to subscribe to our newsletters to stay on top of our news and upcoming events. Until next time, Pod Squatters.